Hustling didn't build my business. Systems did. Hustling only works when you are present, tired, exhausted, 7 days a week. It's you exchanging your time and energy for money. Systems work when you're anywhere. When you're anywhere in the world, when you're sleeping, when you've woken up late, when you're in the gym, your system is still working. Hustling is momentum. Hustling is needed to get something started. It's needed to get something off the ground, and it's needed to bring the money in for there and then. A system is longevity. A system is repeated. That's going to work wherever you are. So you want to learn how to convert your business from hustling, which isn't a business, as I said, to systems, right? So if your business needs you there while you're exhausted, do not have a business. You are hustling, right? Let's differentiate the two. If you've ever felt like you're working non-stop and you are exhausted, right? But you're making money, but you're stuck. You ain't going nowhere. You're not failing, but you just haven't been taught how to implement a system. I've been there. I know exactly what it's like. I'm going to tell you a story of what I was going through when I was hustling. I was making money, don't get it wrong, but I just didn't have time. My business wasn't freedom. My business was stress. A system changes my business into freedom, right? This is where you need to get to. But let me tell you a story. Once upon a time in 2017, I believe it was, I still happen to have 3 stores at the time, but I don't have a system. I'm hustling. Everything's inside my head. It's draining. I've got people phoning me left, right, and center from each store. I've got 3 different phones ringing because I'm having to attach a store to each phone, right? Because I can't afford to keep missing calls with people asking me what they should do because there's no system, there's no routine. It's my birthday, 2017, my birthday, but that's how my life was for years before I met my business manager. So for my birthday, I want to treat myself to a Range Rover, right? This is the first time in my life I was buying an expensive car. And this is the first time in my life that I felt like, I want to buy it from the showroom. So I go into the Range Rover showroom. I got a picture in my head of what I want my Range Rover to look like. Black rims, the biggest rims that you can get on it, blacked out, Range Rover tinted windows, leather seats, all the fixtures and fittings I wanted on it. So, but I was silly, right? I walk into there and I think to myself, I'm just going to be able to walk in, pay the money. I had a budget of like 70, 80 grand. I could just pay the money and then walk out, drive away with a Range Rover, right? That's what I thought was going to happen. I didn't know how this whole thing worked in a sense of people asking me if I want to insure my wheels, if I want to insure my paint, if I want this type of paint and that type of paint. I wasn't expecting this whole process of buying a Range Rover to take 5 to 6 hours. So I'm sat there. And as I'm sat there, the sales rep is asking me loads of questions about what I want, all these packages, gap insurance, blah, blah, blah. And my phone is just ringing. Every time we get to the next stage, my phone rings. And I'm on the phone 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And he can see I'm stressed. Loads of grey hairs. This is how I got all my grey hairs from not having a system. So he can see that I'm stressed, right? Anyway, he's trying to conduct business with me and he can't conduct business with me because when one phone stops ringing, the other phone starts ringing. Yeah, I'm making money. You can see I'm making money, but I didn't even have time to enjoy it. I couldn't even buy myself a birthday present with all of the work that I'd done. I've been working in this crazy way without a system for years. So anyway, the sales exec says, you know what, I can't work like this. Do you want to come back when you've got time? So I say to him, yeah, no problem. I'll come back when I got time. My birthday's like in 2 weeks' time. I want this before my birthday. He looks at me like, it doesn't work that way. We need to put the order through. This car's going to take months. So I'm thinking, all right, well, I'll try and come back. Anyway, cut a long story short, I come back maybe a week or 2 weeks on around the day after before my birthday. And exactly the same thing happens again. And the sales exec says the same thing. You know what? We tried to do this last time. Like, you don't seem focused. Like, you're not listening. You're losing time. I'm losing time. I could be worried about working with someone else that actually has time to go through all of these forms and knows what exactly what they want. I knew what I wanted. I just didn't have time. And that's what hustling does to you. You're going to face burnout. Hustling is burnout. That's what happens. When you hear these stories or somebody says to someone else, you're going to burn out. I would hear this all the time in the beginning of my business. You're going to burn out. You're going to burn out. You're going to burn out. Everyone said it to me. But what nobody said to me was, you need a system. That's what the key word was that nobody says. Everybody should be able to know exactly what they're doing, even when you're not present. And that way you can travel the world, right? So anyone that follows me on social media, you will know how much I travel, right? I travel all the time, at least averaging 4 or 5 holidays a year for the past 10 years, right? This is how I've done it. Systems, right? So let's have a look at what we need to be considering when we're looking at systems, yeah? This isn't about exhaustion and this isn't about hustling, and you have to realize you have to, separate the two. Otherwise, you will face a burnout. So we need to be looking at clear processes. All of the processes that you have in your head, you have to be writing them down. So if you know that this is the process from you to getting a product, to you executing a sale, and then for you, relaying that information onto some form of accounts, all of this needs to be written down, and the steps and stages of this needs to be clear. This is how, when you get your first staff members, as we spoke about in the previous episode, you will then know what processes your staff follows. So this isn't about being psychic. This isn't about being telepathic. This is about being as clear as possible, right? You want your processes to be written down. And like we said previously, you want process maps, right? Process maps and your processes that you know how to do, that you've been doing within hustling and making the money. This needs to be done on paper or in digital text, right? This is what you need. So once you've got your clear processes, you need repeatable steps. These steps for people within this position, they need to be repeated daily, because now you've got a predictable outcomes, right? You know exactly what happens when you follow the process, and you know that these processes are repeated every single day. The best sales execs, they would follow the same process every day. Yes, a customer's needs and might change. So you've got variation of different clients, whether you've got clients buying multiple orders, multiple products, or you've just got someone that you have as a single client, as a one-off payment, right? A person will be able to work that out themselves when that moment happens, but they've got to be able to know, how do I get the price? How do I take the payment? How do I log the payment? And how do I have repeat custom with this customer? The moment you've got that right, Bob's your uncle. Simple strategy. The outcomes of this is predictable. The outcomes is more money. And then once you've done that for a year, you can then look at, how do you maximize this process, or how do you cut timeframes in this, right? If your sales in year one of you having staff, sales pitch takes 30 minutes from beginning to the end. Where is the cutoff point? Where do you have a hard stop with the sale where you're saying, right, you've been trying to sell this for 30 minutes to the customer, hard stop, on to the next one. Into year two, you now know, right, guys, rather than us spending 30 minutes, let's cut this time down to 20. Right, now that's a third off, and here you maximize the sale. So you take the jargon out, you know the predictable outcome, and you know this is the way that you're going to make more money in a shorter time frame. Consistency beats intensity every single time. So this is why with the repeated methods, we're being consistent. We all know this. If you're in the gym and you're there every day, you know the results of being consistent. If you're eating healthy and you're doing that every day, you know the results of being consistent. If you are hustling and you're doing that every day, you know the results of being consistent. This is how businesses are built, right? This is how I built my business. So hustle depends on energy. Systems work even when you're tired. This is where you've got to be careful, because hustle energy is just, you can do that on your own. You can't do that in a team in general of loads of people. It will be chaos and it will be chaotic, right? I've hustled, like I said, couldn't even buy myself a car, and I never did buy the car, right? So I've hustled long hours, late nights, doing everything myself. And yes, when people were telling me I was going to burn out, they were right. I was on very close to burnout, constant headaches, etc., etc. And I learned something important, right? And this is where I realized the importance of systems and longevity. Now, every time somebody wants to go into a business venture with me, or anytime I want to start a new business, the first thing that I think about is a system. I don't think about anything else. I don't think about the hustling, because that means I'm exchanging my own time and energy for money. Like, yes, I will do that, but I put that time and energy into creating systems, because this is where I know that the money is now for me. And like I said, it's repeat, right? I want to minimize my effort in the future. I do still want to work hard, but I want to work hard smartly, right? So this is what I told my staff members. We work smart and hard, but smart first. So this is structured learning when we're building systems, and we got to make it interesting for the staff. You still don't want to micromanage people, and you still don't want to kind of like overlook everything they're doing. Yes, you want them to be in the system, but you also want them to have freedom so that they can make their own decisions. This is where you get the best out of people, and this is when you yourself become the best version of a leader that you can be. What they need is structure. And sometimes they just don't have the knowledge to, or the experience to have conducted these sales so many times like you have when you've hustled. But now you're just turning it into a process, right? So hustle works when you feel motivated, you know, you've got that big urge of energy, hustling's gonna work. Systems work every day, right? This is simple. How do we create systems? One thing that we do, or most people do, is a checklist. So for my company, we have a checklist that people follow every single day. There's 30 steps all into different sections. Whether one section is customer service, that is obviously notifying people based upon the status of their device, the where it's at, right? And then we have another section which is cleanliness. It gets even as small as that. Section about cleaning and tidying up. Another section about obviously login parts, login finance, etc. And another section about social media, right? Posting on social media, letting them know our presence. So it's very hard for someone, if they're following this system, to make a mistake, you know. And then if you've got multiple locations, it's very hard for someone to have an odd experience in a different location. So if you came into our location in Lewisham, or you went into our location in Camden or Shoreditch or Wimbledon, it genuinely wouldn't matter, right? There might be a slight little difference, but 95% of your experience is going to be almost exactly the same. Routines is very important, but it's very hard for you to get into a routine with people that are new. But if they see, as I said before, staff are in a routine, you've got good staff, you've got good eggs, good apples, and everyone's in a routine. By the time they come and they just see everyone working, they see the synergy. Like, they're not going to really come out of this synchronized movement that everybody's on, right? So that's extremely important. Good systems protect your mental energy. So we're not going to talk too much about that. I mean, it's self-explanatory. You ain't going to have tons of calls. You ain't going to have people asking you what you should do all the time. And you ain't going to be having surprises like with just silly stuff, yeah? So, yeah, you know, something odd might happen that your system doesn't really mitigate for. But generally, 95% of your year should run exactly how you've planned, as long as people are following the system, right? So systems allow growth. This is the important part, because you can't scale hustles. Like, scaling a hustle is incredibly difficult. Random behavior, you know, people doing things outside the box. That's where you have to micromanage people. You have to micromanage people in a hustle. You don't have to micromanage people in a system. System is scalable. All you really need to do within a system is generally delegate. For me, the way that I like to do it is, guys, we're going to start our day with a checklist. Midway through the day, just a reminder, guys, how's everyone's checklist doing? We should be at this stage here. End of the day, guys, checklist should be complete. Every store should be looking the same. And we're done, right? I'm speaking to guys 3 times a day, and that's how small my messages are when this is running how it's meant to run. Training. Your whole training is about getting you into this routine. So when you're training staff, you want to make sure that training of the staff is just to follow the process that you've written down, that you know in your head. You know the process. You know how you hustled. You know how you made money. But now it's time to leave that level up, and get training people with processes that you've written down. So they don't have to ask you all the time. You can even record this. You can have a pre-recorded process where you discuss this and somebody comes in, somebody starts, you know, if you've got a manager, he can meet them and then you can just play the video where you would be discussing all of the processes and why these are the processes, and then you hand them a checklist. This is really simple, right? And then obviously we got teams of people. You want a good team. We obviously know that, but different teams will then follow different systems based upon where you're at in your business. So if you've only got a couple of staff members, then you're generally all going to be following the same system. Once you've got a few more, you know, 16, 25, and you're now a mid-sized organization, then you might have 8 people on that area and 8 people on that area and 8 people over there, or 5, etc. Right? You get it. Whenever you can include technology into automating the system, do it. You know, like whether it's various EPOS machines, etc. Whether you've got a database machine, then just do that to make sure that the whole process can be as automated as possible, so people are not spending time on, you know, things that are quite petty, you know. But yeah, as we said earlier, if your business doesn't run without you, it doesn't own you freedom, right? Your business owns you. Your business is going to consume your life, and you're going to be hustling for forever, right? So the moment I got systems right, and I noticed that I needed to put my focus on systems instead of hustling, everything just got clearer. Everything got calmer, and the direction of what direction my business was heading in, that became transparent even to me. So before I had these systems, I didn't really know the direction. I just knew we were hustling, we're making as much money as we can, but I can't afford to be without my phone. I can't afford to leave the country, and I can't afford to miss a call, you know? So this is the importance of, you know, trying to create this calm environment. And a lot of the time, if you're that stressed, a lot of the staff members, they're not going to be able to be around you either, because they're going to feel this stress, they're going to feel this tension, and they're going to feel this randomness of behavior, right? So you want clarity. That's what you want. You know, that's what your staff want. That's what your business needs in order to grow and in order to scale, right? So if you're hustling, then this is what the transfer is that you need to make, right? And this is why I'm here. This is what this podcast is all about. And this is from the ground up. This is the name of the podcast. But from the ground up, we know that we're starting as hustlers, right? And then we get into systems, and then we get better. So if you need help with anything like this, reach out. And if you've got any information to share on this, drop it in the comments, share information. This is a network, and this is about making each other's life more streamlined, more easier, and working smarter, but still working hard. From the Ground Up podcast, why systems are more important than hustling. Let's get it. Thank you for your time.